Hello. I saw a meme the other day. Tad Hargrave posted on his Instagram, and it said, "Everybody else, we can't do our jobs without getting paid. Artists, but think of the great exposure you'll get." And I have been thinking about this for a few days. And this idea of like, we can't work for free. And I know that that meme is maybe sort of tongue in cheek about it, and that, it's that idea of like artists are so often put in the position where people don't want to pay for their services because they feel like they're providing them such great exposure. And so it's a fair trade for their art. And I think that in this world that we live in now, that like, why can't we work for free? And I don't mean that I agree with the idea of giving artists exposure in exchange for their art. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think we should pay our artists for sure. But I'm just thinking about what the world looks like right now and how some of us we don't have jobs right now, or we're on the government's benefits and subsidies, and that maybe we can work for free. And I'm thinking about the people whose businesses have all but stopped right now. So some businesses have continued on, kind of not as normal, but it hasn't been affected by the virus like some other businesses have. And I'm wondering about, how can we work for free right now? So maybe you're a gymnastics instructor, and obviously your business has been shut down and there's not really a way to do that, or to do classes in the same way. And so, maybe you could hold an online session for the kids that were in your class before, or you hold it, it's open to the public, and instead of charging for it, even if it's a nominal amount and only getting maybe 5 people show up, what if you don't charge for it, give up that money that you may have been able to make, and do it for free? And you'd have a lot more people show up. So a lot more people will see you and see how you work with people, and they'll start to get to know you a little bit. And I think that's the piece that's hard, right? It's the idea that if we work for free, we're somehow giving up the potential for making money. And I don't think that that's true. I think that the tiny bit of money that we might be able to make in charging for something that looks very different from our original services it's just, if we can give up that little bit of money, you will end up with a lot more later on. In that, this Zig Ziglar says this. I don't know a lot about this guy, but I've heard this, that if you help enough other people get what they want, that you will then be able to get what you want. And I think that right now, it's a lot of us are trying to jam the square peg that is our business from the before time into this like round hole that is the coronavirus like lockdown scenario that we're in. And when you do that, it's frustrating and it's hard and it doesn't really work, and things start to like look different, and you're like, I don't know like what to do or how to continue on. And I think it's as soon as we just let go of the idea that our business has to look even close to what it did before, the better off we're going to be. If we can just accept that our business doesn't work the way it used to in this new environment, and just like, it just doesn't work. So we're not going to try and continue to use that model in this new environment. We're going to do something else. So my question is, if you were to start again, say you start the same business, you're going to start the same business that you started before, or at least you're going to be in the same industry, maybe doing the same services or something like that. How would you do it now? What would you do now if you had to start over? Or maybe it's not even in the same industry or the same service. It doesn't matter. What would you do now? If you had never set up the first business that you owned, how would you do it differently now? And I think that question, I think we can ask ourselves that question about problems that we encounter, not just about this one, but actually Tim Ferriss talks about this when he has a problem in his business or a big problem in his life, and he thinks like, okay, if I had to start again and I had no systems in place, how would I do this? And no, it's not Tim Ferriss. It was in the Tim Ferriss book, but it was somebody that he had interviewed. I don't remember who. Maybe I can find out later. But how would you start again? So this was actually a pretty fundamental piece of how I started my business, even though I didn't know it. Because I had worked in public practice, but it had been years, and my experiences in being with a corporation and working in industry, the way that I set up an accounting firm was nothing like the way that traditional firms are set up. Because one, the things that I know about traditional firms, I didn't like, and I didn't want it to be a part of my company. And two, I really didn't know the details of the inner workings. And so when it came to solving problems and it came to setting up systems and that kind of thing, I looked at it from a completely new and fresh perspective, right? Because I didn't have any sort of experience that way. And I think that has really, or I know that has been really beneficial for me. And that sort of looking at it like, okay, here's my current scenario. How do I start again? Like just accepting that we are in lockdown right now. This is not a temporary measure. This is what life looks like right now. And it's probably going to look like this for a while. So there's not temporary measures. We're not temporarily changing the company. Like, what does it look like to start again right now? I know that that's probably a scary thought for a lot of people, especially people that have been working in their business and been creating this business for a long time. I know that it feels like everything that you've put into the business that is no longer working in the environment that we're in feels like a waste. It feels like you've given up a lot of time and a big piece of your life for that. But I would challenge you in that you have learned so much about how the industry works, and how business works, how your business works, what you like, what you don't like, all the things, and that your business did work, and the scenario around it changed, and it had nothing to do with you. It wasn't your fault. You have no control over it. So how do you put that aside, and how do you start again? I'd love to know in the comments what your thoughts about this are and how you would start again. If you had to completely put your business aside and start from scratch today in the environment that we're in right now, not a temporary environment, but like this is what life is like now. What would you do? How would you start again? Yeah, leave that for me in the comments, and I would love to continue this conversation there. I'll see you tomorrow.